What's going on, fight fans? Welcome back to PYP Boxing. This week, we'll be talking about the fights that are going on this weekend. Naoya Inoue takes on late replacement Ye Joon Kim, and David Pacheco will face his toughest test yet in Steven Nelson. Let's get into it. Well, here's the first official gimme of the year. After several postponements by WBO mandatory challenger Sam Goodman, last-minute replacement from South Korea, Ye Joon Kim steps in to save the show. Mark, Kim is 21-2 with 2 draws and 13 KOs. He's on a 2-fight win streak, mostly against unknown opposition. You got a chance to look at him, as did I. What did you think of him?
You know, he just looks really, really unexperienced for the record that he has. The record that he has is very deceiving in this case. You see him fight. He doesn't have the talent. His opposition, I don't think any of them are even close to the opposition that Inoue has faced in the past 5 years. I mean, the opposition is really low. You have to fight higher opposition to get better. I think he's just from an area that doesn't really take boxing that seriously. I think Inoue is going to handle this pretty easy. It's a shame what happened with the Goodman fight. A lot of people were looking forward to it. They tried to work it out multiple times. It just didn't happen. We'll find out later on if Goodman is still going to be able to fight him. But Inoue is going to take care of him. We all know it. I mean, David, what can you say about him? He's got everything. He can knock you out from multiple different stances. He's quick as hell. He's still the best guy on the planet. It's not going to be much of a night for Kim.
Yeah, his last loss was against a guy named Rob Diesel, who was 14-9 at the time. Mark, Inoue is a minus 4,000 favorite roundabouts. Kim's plus 1,500. The over and under is 3.5 rounds. For a while, I was thinking this fight was going to go over 3.5, just because Inoue hasn't really been getting early knockouts recently, if you just look at his last fights. But this guy is not on the caliber or the level of the other opponents that Inoue has been fighting. So I'm starting to rethink my over pick here. But to be fair, it's going to take a Buster Douglas. I dedicate this fight to my Jefita type effort for Kim to pull off the win. Let's be real. What most folks are going to be talking about when it comes to this fight is who will be next. And you probably have the last remaining test for Inoue at 122 pounds in the guy of MJ Akhmadaliev. He's the Monsters WBA mandatory. He's been slandering Inoue for the last year or so, throwing around the word duck. Now, we don't stand for any Inoue slander here at PYP, but we do call it like we see it. Is Inoue ducking MJ, in your opinion?
Well, you know, I did talk to our friend Jay Panda this weekend. I did ask him about that since he is close to MJ, obviously. There's no duck happening over there. They're just sitting patiently. They understand the situation. They understood the situation with Goodman. You know, obviously on their side, they're going to clamor and do everything they can to call him out, but they definitely won't go that route and call him a duck. Panda's just got too much respect for Inoue to say that. You're not going to hear that from their camp.
MJ is the guy at 122 pounds that Inoue needs to fight before he moves up, if he ever moves up. He was next in line to fight Inoue, if you guys remember this, but he fought Marlon Tapales and he lost to Marvin Tapales. So what does that mean? He has to go wait in line for his next shot. It looks like MJ is going to need to wait in line for a while because Top Rank has expressed plans for Inoue to come back to the U.S. should he take care of business with Kim, which we're all expecting him to do, to face the unheralded WBC #1 contender, David Alan Picasso. I know you're high on this guy, Picasso, Mark, but even you have to admit this guy doesn't really deserve to be in the ring with Inoue yet. I don't know why this fight is taking place in the U.S., but do you think this is the right fight to bring Inoue to the United States for?
Yes, only because it's a moneymaker. I mean, and also, who else are you going to get in the 122 division to make money with Inoue? Inoue is a huge name, in my opinion, in the United States. He can make money with anybody. He's a big name, and I do believe he could probably sell out a T-Mobile Arena on his own on the West Coast with the Japanese fans in California. Maybe on his own, but with help, with an Alan Picasso who does have that alumni from the UNAM and all that Puma rah rah that's going on right now. One of the biggest soccer teams in Mexico, and we know the Universidad Utanima de Mexico is one of the biggest schools out there. They have a big alumni and a big following, and these people will be following him around everywhere he fights. I do believe it would be a huge fight given the huge alumni presence of UNAM in the Southwest American region. If it happens there in Vegas, I think it would be a huge fight. Does he deserve to be in there with him? I mean, he's ranked number one, David. Is he good enough? No, but who is good enough? Maybe MJ has a little bit better of a chance to beat him because I believe that MJ right now is just a tad better than Alan Picasso.
He
That
was a
tad,
unified champ.
he's a little bit better, but that doesn't make it enough for the best fighter on the planet by far. It just doesn't matter.
I don't know why this fight's taking place in the U.S. To be honest with you, Picasso. I understand what you're saying with the Pumas connection. Picasso isn't a big name in the U.S. He's barely a big name in the Mexico, and I know you say he's very popular, but he doesn't bring in crowds in Mexico, right? So I don't know how that's going to translate to the U.S. I disagree with you about Inoue selling out T-Mobile on his own. I don't think he can even do that. Inoue is not a big name amongst the general sports fans in the United States. He's big with the hardcore fans, but you got to remember, man, the U.S. market is very tricky. People are not going to come out to see a Japanese superstar boxer in the United States. Now, yes, there is a Japanese community on the West Coast. They're going to show him some love. They're not going to fill out an 19,000 seat arena for Inoue, at least in my opinion. So I just think this fight should be happening in Japan. I think Top Rank is forcing this one a little bit because this fight would do way bigger numbers in Japan than it will in the US. Anyway, Mark, after Picasso, the idea is to have an all-Japanese showdown between Inoue and Junto Nakatani. That's the blueprint that we've been given so far. If they stick to that plan, it might be possible that the WBA could strip Inoue, and that could set up an MJ Inoue fight down the line, and they could market it as champion versus champion, even though we know it's not actually true. But that could make the fight even bigger if MJ were to have that WBA belt and Inoue were to try to get it back, same way that Canelo's trying to do it with William Skull. Part of me thinks that Junto Nakatani ought to be the one that faces MJ before Inoue does. And let me tell you why. Unless Junto becomes an undisputed champ at 118 pounds, or at least unifies some of the belts at 118 pounds, I don't know that he would deserve a shot at Inoue in his first fight at 122 pounds. The winner of Akhmadaliev and Nakatani, that would be the biggest challenge the Monster has had since beating Stephen Fulton in 2023. What do you think of that?
I do like it, but I'll give you one better. I'd like to see MJ and Alan Picasso. That's what I would like to happen because we know both of them are going to lose to Inoue. Why don't we see who's better between Alan Picasso and MJ?
I don't know, man. MJ's a live dog to me. I mean, he's still an underdog. We'd still expect Inoue to beat him, but I think MJ's the livest dog out of all of them right now at 122 pounds. I don't rank Picasso very highly. I think MJ beats him pretty clearly. You think Picasso actually has a shot against MJ?
Yes, I think he does have a shot against them. I I regard it as a 60-40 fight, MJ being 60.
Okay. All right,
But
all
he's
right, all
got
right.
a shot. He's got a shot.
All right, Mark. Well, shit. Let's move on, man. Let's talk about what might be the most competitive fight of the weekend. On the zone this Saturday, Diego Pacheco will face the challenge from Omaha, Nebraska's Steven Nelson. I believe when these two guys fight each other, both will be facing the best opponent of their careers. David Pacheco's 23 years old, listed at 6'4", some say 6'3", with a 79-inch reach. He's 22-0 with 18 KOs. Pacheco's ranked pretty high in most of the rankings at 168 pounds. He's number 3 with the ring ranking, number 1 in the WBO, number 6 in the IBF, 3 in the WBC, and he's not rated in the WBA. Steven Nelson's 36 years old, 5'10", so he's a lot shorter, with a 75-inch reach. He's 20-0 with 16 KOs. He's been a pro since 2016, and he's the older fighter here, but less experienced. He's number 13 in the WBO. He's not ranked anywhere else. The odds are Pacheco's around minus 450, and Nelson's about plus 300. There's some fluctuation depending on which sports book you're looking at, but there's no doubt age is playing a factor in these odds, Mark. There's a 13-year gap in age between these two. How do you see this fight going?
I see this fight as a 70-30 fight. You know, you got your 50-50 fights, everybody likes to call them. This is a
You're
70-30
kind of
fight.
in line with Vegas then, right?
Yeah, I'm going with Diego Pacheco. Listen, man, I spent some time with Diego Pacheco in camp, and what I learned, man, is Jose Benavides is a tough son of a bitch, man. This is a really good trainer as far as getting his guys to work on stamina. I talked to him and he mentioned, look, with bigger guys like Diego and David Benavides, you have to have them with stamina. That's the main important thing because these guys are big dudes. They're usually fighting smaller guys. And in that case, the bigger guy has less stamina. So he always wants to make sure that his bigger guys have stamina. He works the hell out of them, David. This guy sparred 6 rounds in the morning with Carlos Adames at middleweight for 6 hard rounds while he's cutting weight. And this was January 10th, David. The fight was only like 2 weeks away. I called Benavides later to check on them over at Pound for Pound Boxing Gym. He was out there with Omar Juarez and Sebastian Juarez, the Juarez brothers from South Texas. And when I talked to the Juarez brothers, I just was curious. I said, hey, what's Jose Benavides and Diego doing? He said, well, Diego's doing cryo, getting his body better. And then later on tonight, he comes over and does a walkthrough. I said, man, he still does a walkthrough. So he does a 12-round walkthrough of what he thinks the fight is going to go through. So they're working to stop Nelson's ridiculously slow left hook and his ridiculously slow overhand right. I studied this guy a little bit because I hadn't seen him fight before, and he's got some heavy, heavy hands, man. He can go to the body like nobody, but he still has to touch who he's hitting. He's been fighting some losers and nobody at the quality of Diego Pacheco. It's a 70-30 fight. This guy is slow. This guy is old. He's going to get knocked out. The camp says they'll take care of him by the 9th round. I'm saying they're going to take care of him by the 7th round. This guy's way too old and way too slow.
Yeah, it's surprising to hear how many people think Diego's just going to blow through Nelson. Look, Nelson is not a very quick fighter, but he does have good power. He doesn't look like he's punching with a lot of force, but I've seen his opponents fight him more cautiously than they fight other opponents. The thing that I like about Nelson, and I think that's very important, is that he likes to punch and exchange with his opponents. He scores most of his points that way. He has a consistent jab, so he works behind the jab a lot. He doesn't waste a lot of energy. He keeps his hands up tight, doesn't get hit cleanly. He has a pretty solid defense. He mostly comes forward, but he's not very aggressive, like overly aggressive, but he's going to stay in front of you. And he can fight a little bit on the back foot, but I think lateral movement is going to give him the most problems. I don't know that Pacheco has good lateral movement. He likes to stay at distance. He does have height, though, Pacheco. Good punch output. They both throw about the same amount of punches, between 50 and 60 punches per round. Diego fights tall, uses that height and that reach. He's not like Fundora, who gives up those advantages. Diego stays on the outside, uses that jab, but he does kind of mix it up on the inside, but he doesn't really have an inside game. And that's where I think he's going to be hurting in this fight, because I think Nelson is going to find a way to get in on him. Diego's best punch is the right hand, but Diego relies on the jab more than Nelson does. If Pacheco can keep Nelson on the outside, keep that jab in his face, even weaken him to the body, because in his last fight against Sulecki, we saw him go to the body. I think that can help him win this fight. Nelson, on the other hand, I think he has to draw Pacheco into a fight, land some good shots early, get Diego to exchange with him. So if he can land something early, hurt Pacheco, and turn this into a fight, he can get this fight on his side. I'm a betting man. I have a feeling Nelson can pull the upset. He has the better defense, the stronger punch, and I just think he'll be able to make adjustments in the fight if he needs to. He's a very talented guy, man. He's smart. He knows what he's getting into, and he has a good team behind him with Bomac and the whole Crawford team. I think he's going to surprise some people. Diego should win this fight, but I expect Nelson to surprise people and everybody that's doubting him right now. I think he could pull the upset. Well, that's it for this episode, y'all. What do you think of the fights? Who do you have coming out on top this weekend? Is Inoue going to blast this guy, Kim, out? How long is it going to take? Will it go over 3 rounds or will he beat him under 3? And who do you have in the Diego Pacheco versus Steven Nelson fight? Call your shot. Put it in the comments. Let us know what you think. Don't forget to hit that like button. Thanks to all the subscribers out there and everybody that keeps tuning in to PYP Boxing. We appreciate y'all very much. We are out.